All right, the breaking news this morning, the strongest hurricane on record. One meteorologist told the New York Times it could inflict catastrophic damage and leave areas uninhabitable for months. Patricia is a Category 5 storm with winds of 200 miles per hour.
Let's bring in aerial reconnaissance weather officer, First Lieutenant Lisa Freilich now with more on this. She actually flew into Hurricane Patricia last night. Thank you so much for being here. What was it like flying through that last night?
It was definitely very intense. It was, obviously the strongest storm we've had, and my first Cat 5, and it was very intense last night.
I heard this is the lowest pressure ever seen in a hurricane? Like, people who've been doing this a while say they've seen nothing like this since Hurricane Andrew, when we know the damage that caused. What does this all mean?
Well, it's the lowest pressure ever recorded in the Eastern Pacific, and the lowest for a hurricane, and it had a very intense winds at flight level. We saw over 200 miles per hour, up to 220 miles per hour was the highest we saw at flight level. Now, like you guys mentioned earlier, that is a very concentrated area where those winds are, but where those winds are will cause catastrophic damage when it makes landfall. Obviously, we can't be in that flight with you. What do you see? What do you feel when you are in the middle of this storm, when you're flying through it? Well, one of the first things we're looking at before we actually feel anything, we see the radar, and we see, most things that every other pilot in the world would go the complete opposite direction, but we head right to that. And with that radar, we will see blinking lights which tell us severe turbulence, which we saw tonight. And we don't really have a choice. We have to punch through it to get to the actual eye. And in that, you experience a few jolts here and there, and the best description I can relate it to is going on a roller coaster. That constant dropping out of your stomach. Luckily, it doesn't last that long. It usually lasts about a minute or two, depending on how big the storm is. So luckily, this one wasn't a very large one. The eye was only 7 miles across.
What can they expect, do you think, on the ground based on what you saw? Is this storm, do you think, will it maintain its strength, and will it head where they think it is heading?
Well, I'm not a forecaster on that. You'd have to look at the National Hurricane Center and look at what they're forecasting. But when we left it, it was still intensifying. And each pass, we did 3 passes through the eye last night, and each one we did, it kept getting stronger and stronger.
Wow.
And I know from when we first got there, they weren't expecting the central pressure to be as low as it was. It was almost 30 millibars lower, which is a huge, huge deal. Almost 30 millibars lower than what they were expecting.
Each pass, it was getting stronger and stronger. Lisa Freilich, thanks so much for being with us.
Thank you so much.
All right, what a week for Hillary Clinton. Grilled for 11 hours on Capitol Hill. Plus, one candidate she doesn't have to face in the presidential race. Plus, one debate behind her. Does Hillary Clinton have her groove back?
At IHOP, October is deliciously scary. Kids can